Welcome back. We've just finished talking about all kinds of cool service stuff, particularly around the advanced load balancer. Here in this lab, we're going to play with the advanced load balancer. This is lab number 18. And if we look at the diagram as to what all we're going to work with, uh, we're missing a couple of things out of here. The advanced load balancer controller and NSX manager and how we're going to get those talking to each other. But in the grand scheme of things, here we're showing the advanced load balancer with the virtual service living on the service engine and how it's going to work with the servers in the server pool. So what are we going to do here? If we look down the list of things we're going to do, we're going to build some segments. We're going to deploy the controller. That's going to take a couple of minutes, right? We'll go ahead and fast forward through that for you. We'll deploy a cloud connector through the NSX ALB UI. We're going to build out our service engine networks and set all that up. We're going to test our connectivity. We're going to create a virtual service and then deal with route redistribution, make sure it all works. So that's what we're getting into here. Now I'm going to go ahead and close this 80.80.80.1 tab for the NAT web server. We don't need that anymore. And we're going to look at what we need to do to prepare. Now, preparing for this lab is just like preparing for most of the other labs. We need to make sure we're logged into NSX, which we are, and we need to make sure we are logged into vCenter. Let's do that and get a new login token ready to go. And I'm going to hit the copy and paste here, and copy and paste here for the password. And go ahead and log in. Now that we've got that set, we need to come back into NSX, right? We're going to use vSphere stuff later on. Don't worry too much about that. We've still got to work a little bit in here. But for the time being, we're going to do some work in NSX, and then we're going to do some work in the advanced load balancer. So we're going to come in and build a couple of segments, right? We're going to build these overlay segments for the data plane and management. So we'll call this ALB data plane, and we will connect this to T1 gateway 01, and it is an overlay network, so we need to put this in prod overlay TZ. What's our CIDR network here? 172.16.60.1/24. That's our gateway for the ALB data plane network, right? We'll go ahead and save this. No, I don't want to continue configuring, and we'll add one more because now I also need an ALB management network. And then we're going to configure this up just the same. Tier 1 gateway 01 and prod overlay TZ. This is going to be 172.16.70.1/24. Right? That's going to be my subnet here. We'll go ahead and save this. And now we need to get to the controller. So no, we're not going to do that. Now, to deploy the advanced load balancer controller, we've got a couple of ways we can approach this. Here, we're going to approach it through NSX. So we'll come into System and Appliances. Right, System and Appliances. And when this loads, there it goes. We're going to come over to the Advanced Load Balancer, the NSX Advanced Load Balancer tab. Now, because we're going to work with a multi-node, well, in general, we would work with a multi-node advanced load balancer controller cluster, we want to set a virtual IP. Remember, we've got to do this before we deploy the controller node. So 172.20.10.48 is our virtual IP. All right, that's going to be our virtual IP. So we'll go ahead and save that. And that's set now, and we want to add an NSX Advanced Load Balancer. So here we want to look at a remote OVF link And we'll go ahead and this will be something we have to carefully type: HTTP 172.20.10.11, not 100, that's my time server, /files/advanced_load_balancer/controller 22.1.1-9052.ova. Now you could set this or copy and paste this from from the lab manual. I went ahead and just typed it, and we'll see if that works. And we'll go ahead and upload this. And while that is uploading, right, it's going right there. Let's hit a host name. This is going to be SA-NSXALB-01, following our standard naming convention. That's going to be, we're going to put this at 172.20.10.45 with a /24 CIDR mask. What's our gateway? 172.20.10.10. We have seen that over and over again. As we scroll down here, we see that the DNS and NTP server configurations have already been defined. We are pulling those from the existing NSX manager configuration. And that's not a bad thing at all, right? That's something definitely valuable for us. We'll go ahead and deploy a small advanced load balancer controller, and we will wait just for a second here while this finishes uploading. We're almost at 80% right now. We're just over 80%, so we'll give this just another second to finish. And there we go, 100% uploading. 100%. And we have to give this just a second, right? It's still processing. This next button should light up when we are ready. Let's make sure we're not missing anything, just to double check. See, now we're verifying the signature. So we're still doing stuff with that virtual appliance. So we just have to be patient here. That's all. We just have to be patient. Moving to a repository, right? So we're still working. There it goes. Now it's ready to rock and roll. So we'll go ahead and hit next. Now, where do we want to put the controller? That's what this page is all about. Where in vCenter do we want this? Now, we want it in SAVCSA01. That's my management domain. We want to put this in the management cluster. We're not going to worry about an individual host or resource pool. SA shared 01 NSX is the correct data store. We're going to go ahead and thin provision the virtual disk here. And we want to select the PGSA management network because, well, that's where everything else is going for management. Everything else on that 172.20.10 network. Then we'll go ahead and hit next. And here we need credentials. Now, I'm going to come over here to my notepad file. We're going to use the same password here that we use in NSX. So the VMware 1bang, VMware 1bang. And so I'm just going to copy that NSX password. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to paste and paste. Now, if I need to double check what I typed, notice this little icon here looks kind of like an eye, and you mouse over it, it says show. So I can click on that and that'll show what I have typed in. It's probably a good idea to use SSH keys instead of passwords, right? It's always a recommended thing. But in this particular case, we're in a lab. We're not going to worry about it. So let's go ahead and install. And this is just going to go, right? So there our controller VM deployment is in progress. If we come over to vCenter, right, we see in our tasks here, we've got a deploy OVF template process that is happening. So we are deploying the advanced load balancer controller. Now, at this point, we wait, right? Go get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever your beverage of choice might be. Take a break from the lab, um, and wait, right? We're going to go ahead and here in the video we're gonna skip over all of this stuff. So we'll come back here. It'll appear to be just a second, but we'll come back when the controller deployment is complete. So that's what's going to happen here. As you're doing this for real, just be patient. So we'll show you what's coming up next here in just a second. All right, the controller is available. Now you just saw us skip a whole bunch of stuff, but there we go. The controller is done. It is deployed, and we are ready to start using this. So let's go ahead and log in. So we need to open up a new tab, and under NSX we have our NSX ALB, Advanced Load Balancer. So we'll hit this bookmark, and you're right, the connection is not currently private. That's all right. We're going to go ahead and proceed anyway. The credentials happen to be exactly the same as they were for NSX. So just like I have been, I'm going to copy and paste admin and VMware one bang, VMware one bang. Copy and paste. And that should match what we set up when we deployed because I copied and pasted from the same spot. Now, we're going to go ahead and start with some basic system administration stuff, right? We've got a passphrase for config export and backup, and we confirm that, and DNS and search domain and things like that. So since I just did the VMware one bang for the password, I'm just going to paste that there a couple of times. DNS is fine. We're going to go ahead and plug in vclass.local for our search domain. Now, we're not going to plug in any SMTP stuff here, and that's okay, right? In your environment, yeah, you'll probably have an SMTP server and want to be able to send email notifications. But here, we're not going to worry about it. We're also not going to do any multi-tenancy. So we're going to come up and click Save, and then we need to go create a cloud connector. Now, you may have noticed just a second ago, there was a box that said set up cloud after you're done that we didn't check. Well, we want you to see where things are. So we're going to come into the administration tab, right? So we've got our operational tabs up here at the top. Then we go into the administration tab, and first place we need to go is our user credentials, right? So we come down here to user credentials and expand that out, and we select our user credentials field. And we need to create. We're going to have to create 2 credentials here, 2 of them. So the first one we're going to create, we're going to call this one NSX user, and this is an SS, or not an SSH, an NSXT credential. Notice we've got a couple of different kinds of credentials that we can define. And we need a username and password. So I'm going to go ahead and come up here and copy and paste my username and my password. It's important that we get the right stuff here. I've seen this in a number of cases where these credentials were mistyped accidentally. Right? It's easy enough to do. And then we have to go and correct these before we actually get the cloud connector and things running properly. So copy and paste is a good idea. So let's create another one. This one's going to be called VC user. VC user. So this is going to be for our vCenter. And again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy and paste. Copy, paste. We'll go ahead and copy that and paste. We'll go ahead and save that credential. So now I've got an NSXT credential and a vCenter credential, right? From here, we're going to go to infrastructure. So we need to set up our cloud connector for for our NSX infrastructure. So we'll go ahead and create a new cloud. And this is going to be an NSXT cloud. And we're going to, what are we going to call this? Let's just call this NSX cloud. And it's an NSXT cloud. We're going to leave DHCP blank. Let's object name prefix NSX cloud. So that'll be anything that we create. Primarily, we're going to see this NSX cloud prefix in our service engines. So we're going to go ahead and come down here and change our credentials. We want to go ahead and specify that our NSX manager is at 172.20.10.41. And we'll go ahead and use our NSX user credentials there. We'll connect that, and that looks all right. We then need to start setting up for our service engine management and data plane network. So here we're in the management network header. We want to make sure we are looking in the prod overlay transport zone. And remember, the ALB management network that we set up is behind T1GW01. And there it is, ALB management. That's the correct network here. Data networks, same, well, not the same, similar thing. We're looking at our overlay transport zone. We need to add a segment, and we're going to add a segment behind T1GW01. We're going to choose our ALB data plane segment. Now, if we continue to scroll down, we also need to add a vCenter server. So let's go ahead and add that. We're going to go ahead and call this savcsa01.vclass.local. And we'll go ahead and change our credentials. So, my vCenter address, 172.20.10.94. We've already found that because we've already got some basic registration that has happened, some basic configuration. So it's available to us to use. And there's our VC user credential that we have. And then we need to select a content library. This content library is something we created. In this case, we just called it NSX ALB. This is where we're going to specify that the advanced load balancer places the service engine virtual appliance template so that as the controller, as the advanced load balancer tries to deploy service engines, it's right there in a content library in vCenter. So we'll go ahead and click Done here. And that brings us everything to review. We're going to go ahead and save. And we're going to wait for just a second until this status changes to green. All right, so we'll just give this a second. We want to give it some time to go do the registrations and things like that. But we'll get this changed here in a minute. Just to be sure, just to be impatient, we'll go ahead and refresh the page, and there it is. Look at that, NSX Cloud. It's green. It still shows in progress, right? I mean, here we show our default cloud. It shows everything good. NSX Cloud still shows in progress, but we are in a green state. We are happy to work with this. Now, what do we have to do from here? Well, now I need to go in and set up my networks so that my service engines can use them. So we're going to come in, we're going to stay here in infrastructure. We're going to come under cloud resources. Under cloud resources, we want to come down here to networks. And we want to change our cloud first off to our NSX cloud. And there's our ALB data plane and ALB management networks. And that's great. We already see those. That's exactly what we want to see. So let's go ahead and edit the data plane network first, right? That's just because it's on top. We'll hit the pencil icon over here, and we're going to look at the routing context and double check that still says T1GW01. And under the, excuse me. I have to put markers in for that. So we've validated that T1GW1 is our context. Let's edit this real quick. We want to go to static routes, right? So there's our static route. We want to add one. We need to add a default route, 0.0.0.0/0. Our next hop, 172.116.60.1. Now, if you remember, we created this gateway interface when we attached the data plane network to the tier 0 gateway. So what we're doing here is saying for things deployed to this network, use this default gateway. So we're going to go ahead and set that and save this. And then we need to come in and add a subnet. Right, so we hit this big button over here that says add a subnet. That subnet, here we're going to do 172.16.60.0/24. And we want to add a static IP address pool to that. And we're going to use that, right? Use this static IP address, or use a static IP address for VIPs and service engines. So this is going to be a pool for virtual IP and service engine addresses using this network, this ALB data plane network. So 172.16.60.11 to 172.16.60.20. Right. So now we want to save this. We want to save again. And there we go. Right now we see that we have no discovered subnets, but we've got a configured subnet with 10 out of 10 IP addresses available from our static IP pool. We're going to do something similar here with ALB management, right? So we want to in ALB management make sure that the routing context here is set to global. Right? Yeah, we set the other one to the specific gateway, but this one's set to global. We're going to use this a little bit differently, right? This is just for my management interface. Now, we're not going to add a default gateway here. We're going to add a subnet. And that's going to be not 172.168, 172.16.70.0/24. And we're going to add an IP address pool here, 172.16.70.11 to 172.16.70.20. We'll go ahead and save this configuration and save the network settings. And there we have a similar set of output here. Our networks are set up and ready to go. Now, from here, we're going to jump back to our student desktop, to our prompt. We're going to make sure we can get to our web servers. Ping 172.20, nope, not 172.20, 172.16.10.11. We get there. How about .12? We can get there. We can also go and connect to them in a web browser. Not HTTPS. How about HTTP? There's SA Web 01. There's SA Web 02. Great. That is fantastic. Right? That is fantastic. Now we want to go back to the advanced load balancer. Let's go ahead and close this tab. Come back to the advanced load balancer. Let's come into applications, because now we're going to start setting up the advanced load balancer application, right? The virtual service. So we're going to come into virtual service VIPs, and we will create a new virtual IP. I'm going to call this VIP Web, and we'll go ahead and click the Set Cloud and VRF button. All right, we want to put this in our NSX cloud, and we want to, in our VRF context, set our T1GW01. So that kind of ties us back to that data plane network and where these things are going to live. So let's go ahead and set that. And From here, we still need to set our tier 1 logical router, and we're going to add a virtual IP. We want to enable the virtual IP. We're going to set a static IP address instead of an auto-allocated IP address, and this will be 192.168.100.7. That's going to be our IPv4 address. We're not going to worry about IPv6 right now. I'm not going to worry about a prefix length. We're just going to set the one IP address. So let's go ahead and save that. And there we go. There is our virtual IP. All right. We're going to come over to our pools and set up our server pool. So we'll create a server pool. We want to make sure this is enabled. We're going to call this web pool. There's my description. We're going to set our cloud and VRF. And again, this is going to look very similar to what we just did. We're going to put this in the server or in the NSX cloud behind the T1 GW01 VRF. We'll go ahead and save that. We're going to go ahead and leave pretty much everything the same, right? We're going to leave everything normal there and go to servers. Go to the servers tab. And we're going to go ahead and just add servers by IP address range or DNS name. That's fine. And we'll go ahead and add server web server 2. I'm going to add that in. And hey, I should have, let's click the pencil icon here so we know what this is. The host name here, SA Web 02. That's going to give me some kind of identifier. And we want to make sure that we are directing to port 80. Right, directing to port 80. So we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll get that going. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and add Web 01, SA Web 01. Now, 172.16.10.11. All right, we'll add that. Change the name here. And set that up for port 80. So we'll go ahead and save that, and there's our servers in our server pool. Now we also want to go ahead and make sure that our load balancing algorithm, just for our testing, is going to be set to round robin. I think that's everything we need here. Let's go double check. Web pool, VRF context. Oh, no, there it is. Let's not forget this one. Tier 1 logical router. It's hiding in here. We need to set that to make sure that we have that set to Tier 1 Gateway 01 as well. I knew there was something in there that we were missing. So there is our server pool. Now we could go through and we could set up health monitors and other policies or profiles or SSL profiles or fail actions or things like that. We're not getting into anything quite that deep here. All right, so we'll go ahead and just kick back out. We have our web pool set up now. Then we're going to come in and deal with virtual services. So let's come over here to virtual services on the left, and we want to create a virtual service. Now we can start with the basic or the advanced setup. It's just a matter of how many options you want displayed when you're creating it. We'll go ahead and do the advanced setup. And we want to select our NSX cloud and hit next. And now we're going to set some things up. So let's call this VS Web, Virtual Service Web. Our virtual IP, let's go ahead and pull that down and select our VIP web. TCP profile should just be our TCP system proxy. It's already there. Application profile should be system HTTP. It's already there. We have a whole bunch of other options there, depending on what your needs are. Our service port, now we have to scroll down just a little bit. Our service port is listed at port 80. That's perfect. And let's go ahead and scroll down just a little bit to our server pool, and let's go ahead and select that. Now, we can go in and change all kinds of other things here. We're not going to set anything else up, but I could set up descriptions or choose SSL or server pool groups or bot detection policies. Some of these come with the are available with the enterprise, right? The advanced load balancer enterprise licensing. So some of them are not necessary here. Same thing for policies and analytics and all that. But this gives me security, network security, and HTTP security, and other load balancing capabilities, other identification capabilities. If we hit next, right, we have profiles about analytics and metrics and things of that nature. We'll go ahead and hit next here. And then under advanced, right, performance limits or virtual IP advertisements or things like that. So lots of really, really neat capabilities depending on your particular load balancer needs. We're just going to click save here because for what we're doing, we're not doing that much, right? We're doing some pretty basic load balancing. Now, the health of the load balancer, right? Creating, right? State creating. Why does this say state creating? Well, let's go over here and look at vCenter real quick. And we'll see we've got fetch content from content library, deploy OVF package. In other words, we're deploying a service engine right now. So we're going to go ahead and wait for all of that to happen. And we'll wait for this state to change from creating to to green and happy and ready to go. So we'll come back in just a minute. Well, it'll be a couple of minutes for me, but it'll look like a snap of the fingers to you. We'll be back shortly after that transition takes place. There we go. Our service engine has been deployed. Oh, our score just went to green and happy to 54. Look at that performance base. That's all right. That's we've got our service engine. It's all there. Let's see if we come over here into vSphere. We see, look at that NSX cloud. There's two service engines, Avi SE service engine, BCTVI, and ELGSX, right? This 5-character string at the end of the service engine is just a unique identifier here. So we've got our service engines. Now what do we need to do? Well, now we need to make sure that our tier 1 gateway is properly advertising the load balancer virtual IP, right? The virtual service VIP that we just created. So let's come back over here to networking. Let's come down to our tier 1 gateways and we'll edit our tier 1 gateway 01. Remember, all of our networks kind of live behind here. We'll come into route advertisement and there is our all load balancer VIP routes. Let's go ahead and save this and close editing. Right, save and close editing. Now, if I change my redistribution, my route advertisement, I probably also need to change my route redistribution. So let's come up here to our BGP Tier 0 gateway and edit this. And route redistribution, we need to tell BGP about this. We've got our one route redistribution rule set where we're going to edit this, change our route redistribution to include load balancer VIPs from our advertised tier 1 subnets. All right, let's go ahead and hit apply and add and apply and save, and then we can close editing. All right. At this point, we should be able to use the virtual IP. We should be able to get there. So what are we going to do? We're going to go ahead and open up a new tab. We're going to point this tab to HTTP. colon whack whack 170, or not 172, our virtual IP, right? 192.168.100.7. And we should get, hey, look at that. There's Web02. Now, if we refresh that a couple of times, right, we can see that kind of flipping between Web01 and Web02. Load balancing is indeed working, right? It is indeed working. Now we can double check that with curl, right? So we'll see that there's no silly browser tricks that are going to happen here with curl. Curl minus I. Right, and so we can just run curl, and there we see there's our SA Web 02. We do it again, there's Web 01. If we do it again, it should be 02 because we're set to round robin, right? So there's no real question as to what's going on. So there we have it. We've just set up load balancing using the NSX Advanced Load Balancer. Great stuff. Great stuff. Now, let's come back in the next lecture, the next lab. We're going to work with virtual private networks next. So that, my friends, is the plan. Come back and see me for more fun lecture and lab goodness in this class.